This is the establishment, the deep state, as Trump would refer to them, the civil service, as I would refer to them, literally changing the rules because of one man
Mm.
and one party. This has never been something that's on the agenda until Musk started flirting with the idea of donating 20 million to reform
I
UK
think
and Nigel Farage. Breaking right now, growing lefty hysteria and panic over Elon Musk's potential donation to Reform UK to the tune of $20 million. So you will have noticed that the left have absolutely no problems with Bill Gates or BlackRock, not to mention the unions bankrolling Labour to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. But as soon as it's a surging party on the right, they want to change the law. Let me show you the front page of the hard left Guardian today, which reports Keir Starmer must strengthen the rules around political donations to protect the electoral system from foreign interference. Now, this is according to Vijay Rangarajan, the chief executive of the election watchdogs, who said that linking donations to political parties to the UK profits of companies owned by foreigners was one of the urgent changes needed to retain the trust of voters. Well, Neil Hamilton, why the hell has this bloke never given a damn when it's Bill Gates interfering in British politics, when it's BlackRock interfering in British politics, or when it's the unions completely dominating the financing of the Labour Party and influencing their policy positions, which we saw most recently, by the way, with the ludicrous pay rises for train drivers, which has caused a £9 billion black hole in the economy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is a complete nonsense, isn't it? Elon Musk can easily channel whatever he wants to contribute to a British political party through a British company, and that would be perfectly lawful. Nothing wrong with that at all. When you look at the people who are complaining about this, I mean, they don't really have the interest of Britain at heart at all. They're people who believe that Britain should be abolished effectively as a nation, and they want, through their policy of mass migration, a complete cultural change in this country to destroy what people like you and me think of as naturally what Britain is all about. And when you look at world leaders like Donald Trump, actually, he's got much more claim to be regarded as British than Sadiq Khan. And Trump's mother was, of course, born in Scotland, was a fluent Gaelic speaker. So, of course, he's very attached to this country too. And, we should be celebrating these links. Elon Musk is a Commonwealth citizen. He's got a South African passport. So I think the left, of course, just hate it when they are opposed. And the trouble that we've had in this country in recent times is that the so-called parties on the right have just rolled with the punch and not returned fire. And that's going to change now through the fracturing of the electoral system, which Reform UK represents. That's what they're really afraid of. It's that the voice of the British people who've been ignored, despised, condescended to for too long by the political elite now is in danger of losing its hegemony. And bring it on, I say, bring it on big time.
But Christine, isn't this the equivalent of electoral interference? Because this is the establishment, the deep state, as Trump would refer to them, the civil service, as I would refer to them, literally changing the rules because of one man and one party. This has never been something that's on the agenda until Musk started flirting with the idea of donating 20 million to Reform UK and Nigel Farage.
I think it's hilarious, their reaction. It really is. I mean, when Reform was a small party and it was, it was just knocking around and tinkering at the edges, they was just dismissed, as Nigel says something like, first of all they ignored me, then they laughed at me. Well, they're not laughing now. Well, they sure aren't laughing now. And I think they are very worried indeed, because the way things are going, if the main parties aren't careful, and it's their own fault. As Neil said, they have ignored the will of the British people. They have ignored what the voters really want. I mean, look at Labour. They've got, 22% of the voters, and look what they're doing. Within months, they're trying to destroy the economy in the country. So no, I think it's wonderful. Bring it on, Elon Musk. I mean, divert a bit in our direction too would be nice. But no, why not? As Neil says, he can easily do it through a British company. The unions can do it to Labour, etc., etc. So why not? And that would make reform. They're almost unstoppable now, but that would make reform, if they had the money behind them, that would professionalise and to build up their grassroots all over the place, which is what they desperately need to do. That would completely transform the situation, and we'll see Farage in number 10.
I know. Well, I predicted it back in June. Neil, it feels like there are so many examples of desperate bids to stop the Reform UK wave. And I wanted to show you something because as a former party leader, maybe you know if this is normal or not, but it was sent to me by a member of the Outspoken family who is on the research board, or one of the people who contribute polling to opinion research. Mm-hmm. And this is their question for, if there was a general election tomorrow, for which party would you vote? And you see there, Conservative, Labour, Lib Dems, Green. If you want to say that you're voting for Reform UK, you first have to click on some other party, and then you get through to the list of parties, including Reform UK. Now, given Reform UK is either number 2 or number 3 in every major poll, that's a disgrace, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's nothing new in this. 10 years ago, when I was the director of the UKIP, the European election campaign, we did a massive amount of work with opinion posters, and we followed the polls in very, very great detail. And most of the big posters didn't identify UKIP either as a choice specifically on the list. You had to do exactly the same thing, and yet that was an election which UKIP actually came out top in. We got 27% of the vote, which was 2 or 3% more than the Tories in second place. And yet, if you went to the opinion polls, they consistently underestimated UKIP's support because of the way in which the polling data was collected. That's why the polls have been so disastrous, I think, in recent times in predicting election results. It is because their polling methods are skewed against insurgent parties. UKIP 10 years ago, Reform UK today. So actually, they don't actually do what it says on their tin, which is telling you the state of opinion in the country. They just tell you what opinions they would like the country to hold, probably, because the polling organisations are part of the metropolitan media elite that are overwhelmingly dominated by PC lefty opinions.
Yes, everything is about holding the status quo. And of course, the mainstream media too. And Christine, I wanted you to have a look at this little interview between Kay Burley.
Hang on, Dan.
Oh, yes,
Dan,
of course, come on.
Before we do that, because otherwise I shall forget.
Yes, please.
I'm very old, I shall forget. I just want to say, somebody sent to me this morning about something different, and it is the most wonderful clip from Yes, Prime Minister, when Sir Humphrey is explaining to Bernard how you can get 2 absolutely opposite answers. This was about, do you want national service or don't you support national service? And he went through the questions, and it was completely brilliant. And it just shows you that how you ask the questions determines the answer that you get. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Well, no, I was just going to show you, because I wanted to talk about the mainstream media too. And I wanted to show you this interview with the Reform UK Deputy Leader Richard Tice and Kay Burley on Sly News, where, in my view, she can't even hide her disdain for Reform UK. Watch this.
Equal to the Tories and Labour. No one predicted that. That's because we've got the common sense policies to save this country and get it growing again.
How many MPs have you got?
We've got 5 at the moment. Looking forward to some by-elections, and then we'll have a lot more. And look who's polling.
5 out of how many?
Look who's polling to be the next Prime Minister. Look who's polling. We always look forward, right? That's how we sort of try and progress things. And at the next election, Nigel is currently polling equal first to be the next Prime Minister.
And you can actually hear her laugh, snigger at the end there about the prospect. Now, this is the woman who gasped as if she was having some sort of hot love affair when she saw the exit poll revealing that there was a Labour landslide at the election. So clearly she's not a, how do we put it? She's not an unbiased party in all of this. But I just found it fascinating that now that the poll ratings are so good for Reform UK, the line of attack seems to be, well, you only have 5 MPs. So what does it matter? Why do you matter?
Well, that's that is an absurd line for her to take, because she's not stupid. There's a lot of things I could say about her, but she's not stupid. She broke COVID rules, etc., but she's not stupid. She knows perfectly well what that 5 MPs represents. She knows perfectly well that that is the tip of a monumental iceberg. This is just sitting there, as Richard Tice said, a few by-elections or the next general election, and she knows perfectly well that that is going to double, treble, etc. So she's being very disingenuous. But no, you're right. She can hardly disguise her distaste for Richard Tice anyway, just because of what he represents. And frankly, it's her absolute horror that the people have dared to vote for reform. And it's only the first past the post system that has meant that there are only 5. I mean, the figures speak for themselves.
But first, with the holidays creeping up faster now, goodness, it's less than a week, right, than your aunt's fruitcake recipe, I've got something way better to share with you. If you want to look sharp for all those festive gatherings and maybe finally win that Best Groomed at the Family Dinner award, check out the latest masterpiece from Manscaped, the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver. Trust me, this is like Rudolph for your face, guiding you to a smooth, irritation-free shave. So let's dive into the goods. The Chairman Pro is armed with not 1, but 2 interchangeable skin-safe blade heads. Think of them as your grooming superheroes. The skin-safe 4-blade foil for when you want that baby bottom smooth, and the skin-safe stubble trimmer for when you want to keep some stubble but clean it up a bit. Both keep you looking sharp while minimizing razor burn and irritation, because nobody wants to show up to the holiday party, right, looking like they lost a fight with a Christmas tree. But wait, there's more. The Chairman Pro has Flex Adjust technology, which is basically like the holiday miracle of shaving. It's sort of like Santa's elves made it just for you. The blades and pivoting head adjust to every curve of your face and is gentle on the neck area as if they had the gift of foresight. So go ahead, kiss that awkward jawline patch goodbye. No more pretending it doesn't exist while you hope nobody notices under the mistletoe. And if you want even more precision, on the right side of the bracket, there's a precision lock. When you lock it, the blade head sits firm so you can achieve a more precise shave. And here's something that's going to make your grooming routine even easier. The Chairman Pro is waterproof. So yep, you can use it right in the shower. And the waterproof feature doesn't just make shaving easier, it also simplifies cleanup too. Just a quick rinse under the sink and you're all set. The Chairman Pro isn't just for daily shaves either, it's powerful enough to tackle up to 5-day growth, making it perfect whether you're shaving every day or just tidying up after a few days. And with up to 75 minutes of runtime on a single charge, you'll have plenty of juice to go from Santa's beard to smooth as a snow angel. See what I did there? It even has a travel lock to make sure it doesn't accidentally turn on in your bag, and an LED spotlight to help you see every detail, ensuring nothing gets missed. So get the Chairman Pro today and experience a shave that is as smooth as you deserve. I use this product. Trust me, it has everything you need to keep your face looking and feeling its best, all in one box. So head on over to manscaped.com and join the over 11 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by using the code Outspoken for free shipping and 20% off. That's www.manscaped.com. Use the coupon code Outspoken and you'll get 20% off your entire order and free shipping. But now, back to the show. Then, of course, you have this crackpot organization, Neil, called Led by Donkeys. And they are...
Well, I certainly agree with that.
Yeah, because that
certainly are donkeys.
Well, yes, but these guys are meant to hold the power to account. So when the Tories were in government, they were, you could argue, quite rightly focused on issues of Tory corruption and that type of thing, sleaze. Now, we've seen all of the example of it within just months of Labour entering office. Lord Ali, Louise Haigh being a convicted fraudster, which was covered up, Rachel Reeves having this completely fake life before she became Chancellor. but led by donkeys don't seem to give a damn about this. They are completely obsessed with Nigel Farage and Reform UK to the point where they've actually spent their Christmas money, look at this, Neil, at launching an electronic billboard in Clacton which reveals Nigel Farage's earnings since becoming an MP. Now, I take an American approach to this, by the way. If GB News wants to pay Nigel Farage that amount of money and they believe it's worth it to them commercially doing so, who cares? Who cares? But it's just odd, isn't it? The fact that there's so much corruption going on in our current government, but the obsession of the left remains Farage.
Well, it just goes to show, doesn't it, that they're so out of touch. They have no idea what motivates ordinary people who are not in their metropolitan elite loop. The idea that anybody in Clacton is going to be turned off voting for Nigel just because he earns a lot of money from GB News or wherever is just utterly preposterous. What we should be more concerned about is the people who are leeching off the state, earning vast sums of money, not just for doing nothing, but in many cases actively doing things that harm our country. And they know that parties like Reform are a grave threat to their incomes and their way of life. These people, as I said earlier on, all part of the same metropolitan elite with the same mindset. No matter how they vote, even if they vote for the Tories, then they're still, nevertheless, that's part of the Tories' problem, of course, is that they've got too many people of that ilk inside their party, which is why they failed as a government in the last 14 years, and they're failing now as an opposition. But I mean, the way in which the internet has developed, I think, has posed great dangers to free speech, because of so-called fact checkers are not fact checkers at all, because they're all propagandists for a particular left-wing point of view. Of course, Elon Musk completely bust that model when he bought Twitter, now X, and sacked 80% of the staff, most of whom were engaged in the acts of censorship which the internet was created to get around. So the idea that these people are going to succeed in their ambitions through the kind of stratagems that they're employing is absurd, and it just goes to show how totally out of touch with reality they are. And that's why I think will be swept into the dustbin of history, in my view, because the public at large are just not going to put up with this for very much longer.
No, but goodness me, they're going to try. And such a good point, by the way, about X, because the thing about X is the way that X fact checks is with something called community notes, which is completely democratized. I've had community notes on my posts in the past, don't always like it, but so has Elon Musk, and he runs the platform. Whereas organizations like Full Fact, which are always funded by the left, funded by big tech, funded by the mainstream media, are completely crooked. And again, I know that from personal experience. But it's interesting, Neil, that you talk about the failure of the Conservative Party in opposition, because I just wanted to do a little compare and contrast here. I was at the launch of the Heartland Institute earlier in the week, where Nigel Farage gave the keynote address and really hemmed in on the issue of net zero, which he thinks is going to be the new Brexit. But this was a speech delivered completely off the cuff, no notes. He had the room, which included people like, Liz Truss, Anne Widdecombe, former government ministers, Lady Colin Campbell. He had the room in the palm of his hands. Contrast that with Kemi Badenoch, who I think has been so disappointing in her first weeks as leader of the opposition, who tried to go a little Farage with a social media video this week, but I don't think it worked. But look, both of you watch these and then we'll discuss off the back.
Okay. But those of us that thought differently about these things were condemned, mocked, derided. Whilst out of the country, a different conversation was happening. Believe me, net zero is the next Brexit. Net zero is the next big liberty. It is fundamentally going to change British policy.
4 years ago, I warned that Labour will always take the knee. Now we see what that means for our country. Labour cannot negotiate. They get taken for a ride because they give things away for free, hoping that the other side will be nice to them in exchange. They put our national security at risk.
And Christine, I really liked the taking the knee line. I thought that was clever. That was well thought through. But the delivery, I mean, I'm so uninspired. And you compare it to Farage and you think, this is only heading in one direction, right?
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, we're not members of the Tory party, so we didn't have a vote. And when it came down to Jenrick versus Kemi, Neil said it's got to be Jenrick because he'll take us out of the ECHR, etc. And he's got all the right ideas. I thought he is too boring, pale, male, white, stale, etc. And I actually didn't think he had much charisma. I don't think either of them have got the charisma. But I have been so disappointed by Kemi that, I mean, I'm glad I didn't vote for her. I couldn't vote for her, but I just feel I possibly would have done. But no, I think she's been completely hopeless. And alongside her, and of course Starmer is so wooden, Nigel Farage just shines because you can feel it. It comes from the heart. It comes from the soul. He doesn't need notes. He needs nothing like that. And of course, he is 156% right about net zero. And it's coming to a town near you, or it's coming to a field near you. And sooner or later, virtually everybody in the country is going to be affected by this, either through their bills, or they're going to have a great big solar park on their doorstep, or they're going to have pylons surrounding them. You're going to be all right if you live in Islington, little bubble in the middle of London. But for vast swathes of the country, net zero is going to devastate people's way of life, and it's going to cost them a fortune. If I thought that net zero would save the planet, if I thought that the science was correct, then I would feel differently about it. But it isn't. The science is not correct. It is not going to save the planet. And everybody's going to be paying through the nose, except for the MPs, of course, because the taxpayer pays for their energy bills.
Well, indeed. And I would also argue, though, Neil, that Kemi Badenoch isn't going to save your former party.
No, of course she's not. The clue to why she's proving to be so useless is that her explicit pitch in her election campaign for the leadership was that she wanted to unite the party. Well, considering that a third of the parliamentary party ought to be in Reform UK and most of the rest should be in the Lib Dems, what chance is there of uniting the party around the kind of radical policies which the Tory party itself needs to survive? That's why it's institutionally incapable of taking advantage of the massive opportunities that falling government offers them. And that's why the mainstream parties are still part of a kind of consensus, even though there are superficial differences between them. In practice, on all the major issues, they're united. I mean, it was Theresa May who signed up to the net zero 2050 legal obligation, doubled down upon by Boris Johnson. It's all the complete crackpot that we've now got, as our energy secretary is doing, is building upon the legislative foundations that the Tories laid for him. And until Kemi Badenoch says that we were wrong in an overwhelming number of things that we did in the 14 years when we were in office, and now we're going to forge out in a different direction to recognise the reality in issues like net zero. I totally agree with Farage, by the way, when he says this is the new Brexit. I mean, I've been saying this for quite a long time because I've been fighting these battles for a quarter of a century on what now we call net zero. The whole thing is nonsense. It's the biggest transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich that any of us have seen in our lifetimes. And, billions of pounds every year are the grifters and chancers and scammers because the government forces the taxpayer and the electricity consumer to pay for things that they have no say in whether they want or not. And bring it on, I say, for Reform UK to zero in on net zero, or nut zero, as you call it.
Nut zero, exactly. Nut zero is going to bankrupt us, and it's another reason why we do need a revolution, actually, and a smashing of the uni party. I really, really do believe that. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.